Now, the rest of the story. Jack Cohen was 42 and fed up. At 28, life had seemed so different, so promising. Lured by the same vine-covered cottage dream, he and Joyce got married and moved to the suburbs, Englewood, New Jersey. Jack got into the paint and siding business there, and he loved it for a while. But this is the rest of the story. William James once wrote that the deepest principle of human nature is the craving to be appreciated. Let me run that by again. The deepest principle of human nature is the craving to be appreciated. And nobody appreciated Jack Cohen, or so it seemed. He was a good paint salesman, but no one ever once came up and said so. After a couple of years, he landed his first paying job in show business. He thought he'd get some credit or attention there. He had a summer of entertaining at a tiny hotel in the Catskills. He worked for $12 a week plus room and board, and yet not even at that modest setting was young Jack Cohen appreciated. His act was so unappreciated that a bouncer, a fellow employee, mind you, once came up to him after the show and said, "You stink." So Jack got married, and he retired to the suburbs at 28, certain that the happiness and the gratitude that had thus far eluded him would now catch up. But it never did. So Jack Cohen was 42 when he made the big decision. He was going to quit the paint and siding business. He was going to go back out there and get his long-awaited pat on the back, whatever it took, even if it meant risking everything to do it. And this time he was appreciated. In fact, he made a living relating to others who believed that they, too, had been taken for granted. His marriage to Joyce had had smooth spots and rough spots, and yet on balance, Jack was a good husband, and he was a good father to their children, Brian and Melanie, but he wanted to hear it. He wanted somebody to say it at least once. And then Jack started looking around him at the rows of cute little houses down the street with the cars parked outside and the basketball hoops on the garage. And Jack started thinking, go inside those houses, inside the heads of the people living in there, and things turn out to be a lot less charming than they appear. It had been so for Jack Cohen. Nobody had appreciated him. And the more he thought about it, it seemed that everyone had to go through much of life without any appreciation. Before Jack sold paint and siding back in his pre-married 20s, he had taken a stab at show business, remember? He'd even thought he was on his way to becoming a star. It had seemed a reasonable enough objective, especially his father's vaudeville background as a comic juggler made him think that he could succeed. His father had gone by the stage name of Philip Roy. Son Jack adopted that last name, Roy, and started playing amateur nights in theaters. But still, well, you have never heard of Jack Cohen, because when Jack returned to show business, he wanted to do so utterly anonymously. Utterly anonymously. He didn't want to trade on his father's name. His own name had demonstrated no particular penchant for success, so he asked the nightclub owner friend. He asked the owner of this nightclub to make up a name, any name, he said, and the absurd name which that nightclub owner invented for Jack is the one that worked, along with the running gag that emerged from his own real life. I don't get no respect. You know that champion of invisible men everywhere as Rodney Dangerfield. Only now you know the rest of the story.